Idiocracy was a movie you were never supposed to see. The production company and advertisers mocked in the script tried everything they could to blacklist the film, which makes you wonder, how can a movie that's so stupid be so harmful? Maybe because it got a little too close to the truth. Idiocracy shows a future society filled with people addicted to mind-numbing content and prawn, politics becoming a circus, one corporation taking over 50% of the economy, aggressive and dangerous policing, courtrooms that look more like live entertainment, cars that can be shut off by the government, and every inch of the world covered in advertising. Who would have thought that Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, would create a step-by-step guide to build the dystopian hellscape we are living in today? The film follows military librarian Joe Bauer, played by Luke Wilson. He's a man with absolutely no goals or ambitions and is happy spending every day sitting around and watching TV. But when General Collins needs subjects for a year-long cryogenic sleep test, Joe is selected specifically because he is remarkably average and doesn't have any family. Unable to find a woman willing to join him, the government reaches out to a pimp named Upgrade to borrow his prostitute Rita as a model female companion. But unfortunately, after the cryosleep project is unexpectedly shut down by the government, Joe and Rita are forgotten in their sleep chambers and are buried in piles of garbage for the next 500 years. And over that time frame, society just kept making dumber and dumber decisions with a rapidly dropping average IQ. Scientists who were initially researching the cause became distracted by the financial demand for hair loss cures and erectile dysfunction, which feels emblematic of today's obsession with looks maxing. We have extremely popular influencers like Clavicular, who makes more money than actual doctors by coaching his followers to use experimental methods to reach their quote genetic potential, or Brian Johnson putting millions of dollars of research into de-aging his people. And just like Idiocracy, the growing demand for vanity procedures is skyrocketing. Getting a hair transplant used to be exclusively for the ultra-wealthy and celebrities. Now the number of procedures is growing exponentially, with the market size expecting to reach over $50 billion in 10 years. Meaning some of the greatest scientific minds of our generation who could have been working on a cure for cancer, Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson's, or dementia might instead end up chasing the next breakthrough in hair restoration, because that's where the money's at. But when Joe Bauer is released from cryosleep after the Great Garbage Avalanche of 2505, the first person he meets is Frito Pandeo, played by Dax Shepard, and he's essentially the living embodiment of everything that's gone wrong with humanity. Frito's name literally translates to stupid bag of chips. He sits in a massive lazy boy chair drinking some mysterious liquid through a straw about a foot away from a massive screen filled with a dozen windows of content, with the largest one playing a show called Ow, My Balls, where a guy just repeatedly gets hit in the nuts. The chair even has a toilet built in it so he never has to get up. And while some people literally have these exact multi-screen setups with chairs that don't even require them to move their head, Frito's stream of content feels eerily similar to XQC live streaming to tens of thousands of viewers playing Subway Surfers, an already hypnotic game, while displaying 5 different videos, all with audio, and blasting electronic music on top of that to ensure the viewer's dopamine is spiked for hours.
What the hell's he doing?
He's crushing it. Snooze bomb!
And although this isn't something XQC regularly does, the demand for us to constantly be entertained by screens has reached all-time highs. Pew Research estimates that the typical home already has an average of 17 screens. To put it in perspective, the number of household devices was 8 in 2015. That number has more than doubled in a decade. And as a result, the average American spends 7 hours per day looking at a screen, meaning people, on average, spend more time looking at screens than they do sleeping. But when Frito isn't watching mindless content, he's trying to get his rocks off.
Go away, Baton!
Idiocracy might actually have a less emphasis on sexuality than the present day. Adult content exists now on 12% of all websites and is viewed by approximately 69% of American men and 40% of American women in any given year. The industry is estimated to generate over $100 billion, with OF being one of the major contributors to that statistic. It's inescapable. Even 2 OnlyFans girls bought tickets to the NBA Western Conference Finals, sat right behind the coach, so anytime he was on the screen it was showing their chest. Which I will admit is smart marketing, but it's just an example of how content that was once in dark corners of the internet or magazines that were in the back of the store now regularly intersects with mainstream entertainment. So when watching the film, a majority of people would laugh at that Frito situation. He's a hilarious character, but the irony is that a lot of people are slowly becoming him. They watch mind-numbing entertainment designed to help them forget about their lives and responsibilities while being guided by a cursed algorithm to aggressively self-satisfy instead of focusing on achieving higher goals. In Idiocracy, hyper-consumerism has taken over the world. Advertising has become so deeply integrated into society that many people have stopped distinguishing between what is an ad and what isn't. Most people have literal brands as a part of their names like Mountain Dew, Frito, and BMW. The city-sized Costco is so large that people basically live inside of it and use a train to get to different locations to constantly buy more things. When Joe enters the building for the first time, Frito admits that he got his law degree from Costco and it's considered prestigious. Even the single-use shirts and pants that everyone in Idiocracy wears every day to avoid washing clothes have brands on them like they're about to race on a NASCAR track. And while it looks bold and stupid in Idiocracy, if you were born after 1995, odds are you've never spent a day ad-free in your entire life. At present, people see roughly 5,000 ads per day. There are 5.3 trillion display ads showed online every year. On average, children see 20,000 30-second commercials each year. Adults see an average of 2 million of those on a yearly basis. When Joe is thrown out of Frito's apartment, he still can't fully believe what he's seeing. He's stumbling over trash and attempting to seek help from people, but all anyone can do is mock him for speaking intelligently, which, keep in mind, he's just speaking normally.
Joe was able to understand them, but when he spoke in an ordinary voice, he sounded pompous and to them.
He convinces himself he's hallucinating from the hibernation drugs and makes his way to St. God's Memorial Hospital. And yet when he gets there, the place looks more like a sketchy fast food restaurant on the edge of Las Vegas with slot machines, failing technology, and covered in grime. Slot machines at the hospital feels like the modern equivalent of sports betting apps. Gambling used to require an actual trip to a casino. Today, it lives in your pocket. You can literally place wagers from anywhere in the world, and I'd imagine that people do it in hospital waiting rooms or doctor's offices. When Joe gets the chance to describe his symptoms to the nurse, she just stares blankly and holds her finger over a number of stick figures on colored buttons, which looks like a kid's toy that teaches toddlers to recognize colors and shapes, or like a modern fast food menu that allows you to simply touch the picture of the food you want. In Idiocracy, the healthcare system was so desperate to make things easier that every interaction is now automated. From the front desk to sharing information with the primary care physician, everything is so ridiculously simplified that a child can do it. And while today we're not quite pushing cartoonish buttons yet, this doesn't mean that hospitals and medical professionals are immune to cutting corners. There are now surveys reporting that some doctors are turning to AI tools intended for non-clinical uses to make clinical decisions. It's also the first time we see that this alternate future doesn't prioritize drinking water, which is honestly the most insane part of the movie. Drink water. Instead, the water fountains dispense a sports drink called Brondo, which is basically just a parody of Gatorade. And when Joe asks the medical staff for actual water, they just laugh at him and wonder why he wants to drink the stuff that goes into the toilet. Brondo is touted as this magic solution to everything because it, quote, has electrolytes.
Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
And electrolytes just so happen to be one of the buzzwords Logan Paul and Mr. Beast repeatedly used when marketing Prime and Lunchly as healthier alternatives.
More electrolytes. Lunchables, yes, hundreds of millions of units. Their product, 80 less calories, 60% less sugar, more electrolytes. So they're advertising that more electrolytes are good. And that is the fundamental problem here, and the lack of misunderstanding with electrolytes and hydration that has frankly gotten out of control with just this electrolyte hydration beverage market.
Another small detail in the film is that at one point, Joe is standing in a room with wallpaper made entirely out of dollar bills, which is symbolic of the currency becoming so worthless that it's more useful as decoration than actual money. While we're obviously nowhere near that point, Americans have watched the purchasing power of the dollar decline noticeably in recent years. Since 2020 alone, consumer prices have increased by roughly 25%, meaning what costs $100 just a few years ago now costs about $1.25. Put another way, $1 today buys you only about 80% of what it did at the start of the decade. All it takes is a few major economic mistakes and we'll be decorating our walls with worthless money. One of the more subtle, dark realities in Idiocracy was that everyone on Earth has a barcode tattoo for transactions, identification, and to digitally track where they are at all times. Without one, Joe is labeled as unscannable and immediately becomes a wanted man, running around a collapsing thriving civilization suffering from a deadly drought that's killed all the crops and a devastated economy with a hyperinflated currency. The stupidity of it all is really funny, but it's hard to not notice how close we are to similar circumstances. For example, payment implants are already being widely considered by countries all over the world. According to BBC, a 2021 survey of more than 4,000 people across the UK and the European Union found that 51% would consider it. It doesn't take a genius to see how this could become a massive security issue for everyone. One day the chip implant is for our convenience, and the next it's telling us we can't leave our city after an unpaid parking ticket. Plus, our phones are already acting as a version of the barcode system anyways. It's arguably worse. It knows where we are, where we have been, who we talk to, what we are talking about, what we buy, what we search for, and what we are interested in. The difference is, the citizens of Idiocracy were forced to carry a tracking device. We buy ours for more than $1,000 and upgrade it constantly to make it easier and more efficient for it to control us. But where Idiocracy really starts to feel unsettling is its portrayal of government, because it was supposed to be a completely absurd exaggeration of what a dysfunctional society might look like, and yet a lot of it feels not that far from reality. After running around the city and learning more about the imminent collapse of human civilization, Joe Bauer is taken to trial to face the crime of being unscannable. The police are like cavemen in riot gear, and they pepper spray Joe while being completely detained and not a threat to them whatsoever. It only gets more ridiculous when he's placed in a large human-sized cage before being thrown into a courtroom, only for his defense attorney to be Fredo Pendeo. The courtroom is not filled with respectful spectators, but more like a manic mob of sports fans tuning in for some drama. One of them has a large bike helmet with a camera mounted on recording his point of view, which is essentially the modern equivalent of Meta Ray-Bans. The judge has a spotlight pointed on him as if it's one big theatrical event, and his name is the Honorable Hector the Hangman, and Joe's essentially believed to be guilty before he's able to state his case. Any effort to speak clearly is seen as a sign of weakness, and everyone cheers when he's sentenced to prison without a second thought. And again, while this seems like an exaggeration, it's not like we haven't struggled with a very similar problem. The first example would be court-appointed public defenders like Fredo. They're obviously not as dumb as him, but their salaries are determined by county judges. They're less incentivized to take your calls, and they rarely have a voice in court due to being overbooked and underprepared. As far as the angry mob of spectators looking for entertainment in the movie, they might have been satisfied with the real-life fight that took place between a public defender and a judge in Brevard County, Florida.
Stop pissing me off. Just sit down. I'll take care of it. I don't need your help.
No, you know what? I'm the public defender. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to stand here and represent my clients.
If you want to fight, let's go out back, and I'll just beat your ass.
But the people in Idiocracy are not the only ones looking for a show in the courtroom. Televised trials are a perfect example of how our justice system has slowly become a form of entertainment, but it comes with major issues. According to courtroom science observers, the challenge for trial attorneys is identifying potential jurors who hold these hidden biases. Jurors may be inclined to hide biases, particularly ones that they feel are less socially acceptable. When asked difficult or sensitive questions, jurors may try to deliver answers that make them sound better, offering half-truths if they know their full opinion may reflect poorly on them. Simply put, televised trials prevent the jury from doing their only job: find the truth. A juror shouldn't be concerned with how their opinions might be perceived by people watching at home. They're supposed to evaluate the facts and follow the evidence wherever it leads. But since Joe was a moderately intelligent guy surrounded by dumbasses, he escapes from prison just by telling the guards that he's supposed to be leaving prison and not entering it, and they let him turn around and walk out. When he gets in the car with Fredo, the AI in the car is triggered for trafficking a fugitive on their journey to Costco. They lose control of the car, it guides itself to the side of the road and shuts down, and gives the violent and unhinged police officers their exact location. And if you think this is some Black Mirror moment that could never happen, think again, because a congressional bill was passed that will essentially allow government access to your car starting in 2027.